I just want to say thank you again. I know you have a busy schedule, and I appreciate it.
My
But
problem, my pleasure.
I have to start by asking, how was it growing up in Alaska?
um, well, I mean, it felt normal because I didn't have a basis for comparison, right? And so, you where you grow up, whether it's Dorchester or whether it's Alaska, that's kind of what you're used to. And you don't know, aside from maybe the elements, how different things might be elsewhere. But I think that having grown up in Alaska and then having lived in the lower 48 ever since I graduated from high school, I think that I've come to appreciate some of the uniqueness of it, especially the skiing. um, and I get back as much as I can. Obviously, it's been hard the past year, but I like going back there anytime I possibly can.
Yeah, it seems like definitely a fun place to live. I do want to go to Alaska one day.
Cool.
When did you realize you want to become a sports writer?
It was in high school, I think. I wouldn't say I decided that's what I was going to do for my career, but I did newspaper in high school, and it was just a class that I enjoyed, and I kept taking it. I played sports also, and I actually lettered in newspaper before I lettered in sports, if you can believe that. It's kind of crazy, but actually you could believe it if you saw me as an athlete. But I just enjoyed doing it. And often people take newspaper in high school, at least in my high school, as a one semester class, right? You get an elective credit, and then you kind of do something else. And, I just kept taking it. And then, when I was, in college, I decided that, this was something I felt like I could make a career out of. So I went to University of Missouri for the journalism school. And, you know, I really tried to get as much as I could out of college. Like I really, worked hard and was pretty passionate about the craft. And, I decided if I'm going to go all the way to Missouri from Alaska, I wanted to get as much as I possibly could out of that experience.
Yeah, you're really staying right there. What type of job did you take before ESPN?
Well, so going to University of Missouri journalism school is kind of like going to like a trade school.
Mm,
Um, so you work there quite a bit. So I worked at the student newspaper, which was called the Maneater, and I worked at the journalism school newspaper that goes to the city, which is called the Columbia Missourian. And I worked at the Missourian beginning my junior year, and I kept through the end of my senior year. And again, a lot of people just kind of do it for a semester, or maybe they do it for a year. And I just felt like that it was what I enjoyed doing. And so I just kept doing it. And when I was in college, after my first year, I interned at two places back in Alaska. I interned at the Anchorage Daily News, writing sports for them. And then I interned at the local CBS affiliate because I didn't know if I wanted to do broadcast. So I wanted to get a taste of what that was like. And, that job was mostly cutting up film, helping prepare highlights. I did some camera work at like baseball games. I helped the anchor write his script sometimes. And and so that was fun. I would work, at the Anchorage Daily News during the day, and then at the TV station at night. And then I went back to college. And then after that, the next year, I interned at the Sporting News magazine, which was in St. Louis at the time. And that was mostly an editing job. I didn't love it, but I did learn a lot. I liked writing more than editing. And then the summer after that, my junior year, I interned at the Washington Post newspaper. And that was pretty cool. That was, it was a crazy summer. They put me to work. They were flying me around the country. I was covering the Washington Mystics. That was my beat, the WNBA. And so they flew me to where the games were. And it was, like, being thrown into a blender. It was just a crazy fun summer. I was really proud of, being able to work there and some of the people that I met. I still have my hat that I had, a Washington Post hat from that time. And then about a month before my senior year, I got a job at ESPN magazine. So that's kind of, what I was able to do.
For you, was there any job that you had and you were like, yep, I want to be a sports writer, 100%. I want to stick with it.
Say what?
Did you have any of those jobs guaranteed? You were like, yeah, I want to stay in the sports field. I want to be a sports writer.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that it was what I wanted to do. And, I think that, like, to me, the type of writing I always liked was kind of the more in-depth feature writing, magazine writing.
Mhm.
And so even when I was working for a newspaper, I really tried to take the techniques that I saw in Sports Illustrated stories and ESPN magazine stories and stories in Esquire magazine and try to apply them to, whatever I was covering, a game or a practice or whatever. And, there was a lot of like bad writing that I put out during that time because, I was really trying to like do something different, but it all helped. And, especially at the Washington Post, it really helped me get that daily experience, even though it was only for a couple months.
Mhm.
It really helped me, learn about what that was like at a very high pressure place in a very high, in a big market.
I hear what you're saying. How excited did you feel when you were hired at ESPN Magazine in 2000?
I mean, it was such a relief because, like, I didn't know, um, I didn't know what job I was going to get, and I didn't know, where my career was going to take me. I had an idea of what I wanted if I had my wish. I sent letters to like the New York Times and to the Boston Globe and to Sports Illustrated and to ESPN Magazine, and I couldn't, Washington Post. I couldn't get anywhere for a full-time job. And then I just got lucky where ESPN had an opening right before I graduated. Someone happened to be leaving, so I got in. And my first week there, they sent me out to go, report and write a teeny little story. It wasn't a big one, but it was a small one. And that was just, it was so cool. And, halfway through my senior year of college, a team that doesn't even exist anymore, the St. Louis Rams, made it to the Super Bowl. And because our newspaper, the Columbia Missourian, had covered Rams games throughout the year, my best friend from college, Wright Thompson, applied to the NFL for credentials for the Super Bowl, and we got them. And so my senior year, we actually, me and three other friends who were writers, went to the Super Bowl. And I treated that as like a job fair. I mean, everybody was there. And so I was really trying to like meet with people and get FaceTime with people. It was invaluable at the time. And I actually met the editor-in-chief of ESPN Magazine during that week. So everything kind of, it was a lot of luck, but everything kind of worked out.
That's pretty crazy. That was a fun Rams team too, that Kurt Warner, that
Yeah.
fast-paced offense. That must have been a fun time for sure. Would you say that you had any mentors to start out your career?
I have a lot of them. I mean, especially during that time, midway through my senior year, I met, around the time we were going to the Super Bowl, I met Rick Tellender, who's a great, great sports writer and journalist. And, he's an unbelievable talent writing books, columns, magazine stories. And, I met him in the press box at the NFC Championship game.
Mhm.
That the Rams played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, he was just so friendly, and he became, a lifelong friend. I mean, I'm still friends with him to this day. And he's always been really helpful. Tom Junot, a writer now at ESPN, at Esquire for a long time, has been a great inspiration to me. And there was a book that I read in college called The Franchise, and it was a history of Sports Illustrated. It was written by a guy named Michael McCambridge, who's become a mentor also. And I met with him. He lived in St. Louis, so I went and met with him when I was in college. And that was really helpful. And the book itself, really opened my mind because, like, as a student, you don't know everything that goes into all of these amazing stories and, what it's like to work at a place like Sports Illustrated, how people even get a job there, right? There's no guide. And that ended up serving as kind of like an unintentional guide for me. And that was a real big help. Just to see how various writers got hired at a place like that it gave me something to shoot for.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a thing that was going to lead you to a great path. What would you consider your first breakthrough in your career?
I don't know, honestly. I feel like there's been a gazillion of them. So I just don't know. I remember this was right before September 11th. I was in my first year at ESPN magazine. I had written one big feature story, and it was in like August, I think. And we were in an editorial meeting where they were trying to come up with story ideas for the next issue. And people decided, the top editors decided that they want a story on Terrell Davis, who was trying to come back from a knee injury that he had suffered that really kind of derailed his career and really ended up ending it. But at the time, he was trying to come back from it. And they kind of looked around the room and they both looked at me like, someone who could do it. And, the story had to be done quickly. It had to be turned in a week. So I had to, they kind of gave me a nod like, all right, kid, go for it. And I was on a plane to Denver the next day, and I was in Denver all week writing and reporting. And then I turned the story in, within a week. And that was a big deal for me. It wasn't a perfect story, but it needed a lot of editing work or whatever, but it ran, and that was probably a big break for me because it just showed that I could write about a big superstar on a short time frame. And that was pretty important, I guess.
Yeah, I get that. Did you ever have a moment where you were starstruck?
With Terrell?
Terrell, anybody?
Once, that was a good experience for that too, because I grew up a Denver Broncos fan.
Mhm.
I love the Broncos, and you suffer as a Broncos fan through all those Super Bowl losses, and then all of a sudden they became good, and it was right as soon as I graduated that they became good. John Elway retired, Terrell Davis got hurt. So that going there to do that story was the first time I had met a bunch of these people that, I grew up rooting for, like Terrell Davis, Mike Shanahan, some of the other players at the time, the coaches, and I wasn't starstruck at all. I mean, I was there to do a job, and I felt very comfortable doing that. And so, I'd say that, like, for whatever reason, I've never been the type that got totally starstruck by people. I do remember once at the Super Bowl, my senior year, Wright Thompson and I were at the hotel bar one night, and Wayne Gretzky was there. And he was just standing right near us. So that was pretty crazy because he was, obviously one of the most iconic athletes, in sports history. That was a little starstruck, but outside of that, I don't think I've ever really been.
Yeah, I get what you're saying right there. What has been some of your favorite stories that you ever covered?
I don't know. I mean, they're all kind of my favorites in their own way. I mean, I think that, like, it's just, I like doing different types of stories. I like doing profiles on guys like Alex Honnold, who was the free solo climber, and Odell Beckham, and I like doing investigative pieces like on the NFL and how they handled the anthem controversy, and I like doing those variety of types of stories.
You're saying right there. I don't know if this touches a soft spot, but how was it filming a scene for the movie Draft Day?
I'd say that it helped me with the creative process. Like, as a writer or as a creative, you're always like feeling like that whatever you're writing or whatever it isn't good enough, right? I mean, you're always struggling with that. And one of the things you get used to is just kind of diving into it and understanding that the creative process is messy. And just because you get 500 words on the page doesn't mean that they're perfect 500. It just means something to get 500 on, and then you can go back and polish them or rewrite it or whatever. Mm-hmm. But with Draft Day, they started filming at like 2:00 or something in the afternoon, and they didn't end until 2 a.m. It was a long day. And the scene that they were filming ended up taking mere seconds in the actual movie, but they filmed it from a gazillion different angles until they found what they wanted. And that really, like, it reaffirmed the creative process to me, because that's what they needed to do. They needed to shoot it from all these different angles until they decided what was perfect and what worked best for the film. And it just reminded me in my own way of my own little creative struggling sometimes, where you don't know how to begin a story, or you don't know how to end it, or you're struggling with it, and just trying things to try to get closer to what will be a solution at the end really helps.
Would you consider that was your favorite part of being in the movie cast?
What's that?
You consider that your favorite part of being part of the cast?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like, our scene ended up getting cut and like, I was in the movie, but I was just you'd have to really know where I was to see me. But, it was still a cool experience.
Yeah, definitely. That movie, I watched that a few times. I remember watching it over the summer. It's definitely a fun movie to watch.
Oh, nice.
Then I have another question I want to ask you. What has been some of your favorite interactions with players and coaches?
I mean, I've had a lot of them. I remember in 2001, I did a story on Tom Brady, who at the time was starting for the Patriots, but it was before Drew Bledsoe was healthy again. And, nobody even knew whether he was going to finish the year as the starter. And I remember we were leaving the old stadium, the old Foxborough Stadium. It was like a high school field. And the new stadium was getting built. And, he looked at it and he was like, yeah, I hope I play there one day. And I remember that was pretty wild to think about that, to think about what he became later on, and to think that like at that time, he didn't even know whether he was going to finish the year and even play in that new stadium, to say nothing of being, the greatest NFL player of all time.
That's pretty crazy.
That was one. I've had arguments with people that are memorable over the years, but, most of them, I think most interactions are good. And, I'm struggling to think of them at the moment of like, what were some of the better ones, but they, one of these days I'll have to think about that better. Sorry.
It's all good. I saw one of the stories you ran. It was about racehorsing. How was that story? Nobody really talks about it that often.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, that was wild, just because like in the Kentucky Derby, I think a horse had to be put down, and so the idea came from my editor. They kind of wanted to know what it was like for these racetrack veterinarians who have to euthanize horses, what it was like for them. And so I had a weird job. I mean, my job was to hang around racetrack vets until a horse died. I mean, it was pretty morbid. And I did it in a lot of different places. And I never ended up seeing a horse die. The horse I wrote about, I ended up recreating that based on video and interviews and whatever. But and I'm kind of glad in retrospect that I didn't see it. But yeah, I mean, that was a hard story to do, just because it was so morbid. It was about death, and it was about delivering death. And that was like usually when you're doing a story, your curiosities are a little bit more uplifting than that.
Maybe you're saying right there. Definitely an interesting topic, I feel like, racehorse.
Yeah, definitely.
I saw that you're releasing a book in October. And I want to congratulate you about that. It's always about many topics of success in the NFL. How was the process of making that book?
I'll tell you when it's over. I'm not done with it yet, but yeah, I have a book coming out in October on the New England Patriots. It's called "It's Better to Be Feared," and about their dynasty. And it's kind of about, how their greatness came to be and what the costs of it were. And I'm really excited about it, but I'm not done yet, so I can't quite tell you, what it's like. But it's been fun to work on, and in October I'll probably have a better answer for you for that.
Do you see yourself writing more books in the future?
I hope so. Hope so.
So you've had a fun time writing this book. Did you reach out to like many Patriots players and coaches throughout the story?
Oh yeah, and a lot of them, I had to interview them for the book, and it's a long time period, right? You're talking about 20 years. So there's a lot of things that happen with the Patriots. So it was really a matter of trying to winnow it down and pick the things that I found most interesting. Some of them are obvious, like Super Bowl wins. Other ones are less obvious, like a game in 2003 when New England went, they took an intentional safety against the Broncos, hoping that it might lead to a succession of events that would turn out in a win, and it ended up happening just like that. And so, taking readers inside those moments are things that I'm trying to do with it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Did any of the players talk bad about Roger Goodell?
I never really asked specifically how people felt about Roger.
That whole Deflate game was definitely a huge topic at the time.
Definitely.
Well, Seth, that's all the questions I have. You answered them amazingly. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, man, I just really appreciate it. And I appreciate your patience with me. I'm sorry it took so long.
Don't worry about it. I appreciate you going on this call with me.
Thanks, man. Yeah, please just stay in touch. All right.
I will.
Let me know how things go and let me know if I can be of help over the years.
I definitely will. I'm currently right now just looking for internships. If I get any nearby, I'll tell you.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye.